All right, let's get into it. Today we're tackling the truly baffling and disturbing story of Jeffrey Epstein. This was a man who had almost unbelievable power and influence, right? But his entire life was just this web of secrets. And his death, well, that just left a hurricane of unanswered questions that we're still grappling with today.
So to really understand this whole thing, we kind of have to start at the end. Or maybe it's the beginning. It's August 10th, 2019, inside the Metropolitan Correctional Center in New York. We're talking about what's supposed to be one of the most secure federal jails in the entire country. And inside is probably the most infamous prisoner on the planet. And then, boom. In the middle of the night, Jeffrey Epstein is found dead. The official story comes out pretty fast, but right away, it's just messy. It's riddled with these bizarre and frankly really convenient failures in security. The guards just happen to be asleep? The cameras just happen to malfunction? Come on.
So you have to ask yourself, how does this happen? How does a man connected to presidents, to princes, to billionaires, how does that guy end up dead under these circumstances while he's in federal custody? It just doesn't add up. So to figure it out, we've got to rewind. We have to go all the way back to the beginning. Okay, so let's start with his rise to power. Before all the shocking headlines, before the private island, before the massive global scandal, there was just this guy, Jeffrey Epstein. And he was a total enigma. He kind of just appeared out of thin air with this incredible, almost supernatural talent for charming his way into the most powerful rooms in the world. I mean, his career path was just wild. It makes no sense on paper. He's a college dropout, right? But he somehow talks his way into a teaching job at the Dalton School, the super elite place for the kids of New York's most powerful people. From there, he uses those connections to leap onto Wall Street and get this, reportedly with a completely fake resume. And by the time he's 30, he's a millionaire. He becomes known as this fixer for the super rich, the guy who handles their money and, their secrets. And that was the whole paradox of Jeffrey Epstein. You'd see him at every fancy party, on every private jet. He was everywhere. But if you asked, so where did all his money actually come from? Nobody had a real answer. It was a total mystery. And check this out. Back in 2003, when some journalists from Vanity Fair started digging and got a little too close, they were met with some seriously terrifying threats. We're talking a bullet left on a doorstep, a severed cat's head. The message couldn't have been any clearer. Back off. So, here's the crucial part. While the public world saw this charismatic, brilliant finance guy, behind the curtain, Epstein was carefully, meticulously building something truly evil. A horrifying international network designed for one thing: abuse. And he didn't do it alone. His right-hand woman, his key partner in all of this, was Ghislaine Maxwell. Now, she was the daughter of a famous British media tycoon, so she had this built-in high society credibility. She was the respectable one, the one with the fancy accent. And her job? She was the recruiter. She was the friendly, charming face who could get close to the vulnerable young girls that Epstein wanted to exploit. And just listen to this. This is a quote taken directly from a victim's diary that was found in Epstein's files. "Free me from this hell. Everything is controlled by Jeffrey." This isn't just an accusation, This is the reality, written down for the girls trapped inside his world. It just shows you the level of absolute control and terror they were living under. And make no mistake, this wasn't random at all. It was a system, a highly organized, disgusting operation. And the playbook was the same every time. First, they'd target vulnerable girls, often from tough backgrounds. Then, they'd use Ghislaine Maxwell, with her high society status, to build trust. They'd lure them in with promises of money or work, like being a massage therapist. And once they were isolated on his private properties, that's when they were trapped. They used blackmail, threats, and money to make absolutely sure they stayed silent. Okay, so this next part is it's unbelievable. And it really shows you just how deep his power and influence went. Because eventually, the law did catch up to him back in the mid-2000s. But what happened next? Well, it was a masterclass in how the super powerful can literally bend the justice system to their will. So at the time, the FBI had identified over 70 potential victims. 70. The charges he was facing, we're talking federal charges that could have and probably should have put him in prison for the rest of his life. And what did he get? 18 months. 18!
What happened was, behind closed doors, federal prosecutors gave him this secret, incredibly lenient plea deal. It has since gone down as one of the most notorious, most infamous plea deals in the history of American law.
And get this, his jail time was a complete joke. He was in a private wing of a county jail, and he got work release, 6 days a week. He could just leave and go to his office. It was a sentence on paper, but that's it. For his victims, it was absolutely devastating. And for the rest of us, it was just this glaring example of how there seems to be two justice systems, one for the rich and powerful, and another for everybody else. So for more than 10 years after that sweetheart deal, Epstein was a free man. He just went on with his life. But then we get to 2019, and thanks to some amazing, relentless journalists, and most importantly, the incredible courage of his victims who started speaking out, it felt like the walls were finally closing in on him for good. And this time, it was different. No secret deals. The FBI arrested him the second his private jet touched down. But once he was inside that jail, a series of very strange things started happening, one right after another. First, there's what was called a suicide attempt. Then, and this is wild, the day before he dies, his cellmate is just suddenly transferred out. So now he's all alone, even though he was supposed to be on suicide watch. How does that happen?
Which brings us right back to that night in August. But now we have the context, right? We know who he was, what he did, and crucially, who he knew. And when you put all that together, his death in that cell looks less like a simple tragedy and a whole lot more suspicious.
So you have these two totally conflicting stories. The official line is suicide, case closed. But that story got challenged almost immediately. A very respected forensic expert, Dr. Michael Baden, was hired by Epstein's family to watch the autopsy. And he came out and said that the fractures in Epstein's neck were unusual. He said they're rarely seen in hangings and looked a lot more like someone had been strangled.
And the weird details just keep piling up. Why was his cellmate moved the day before he died? Why did the two guards assigned to watch him later admit they were asleep and, get this, shopping for motorcycles online? Why did the main security camera pointing right at his cell door just malfunction? And who was that unidentified person in an orange jumpsuit seen on another camera's footage? You see, every little detail just adds fuel to the fire that this was way more than just a couple of guards messing up. So look, Epstein is dead, but this story is nowhere near over. Ghislaine Maxwell is serving a long prison sentence. Thousands of pages of court documents have been unsealed, naming a lot of very powerful people who were in his orbit. But you have to believe that Jeffrey Epstein took his biggest, darkest secrets with him to the grave. And that leaves us with one final, chilling question. Was he silenced? Was he silenced to protect all those powerful people? And will we ever really know the full truth about the horrifying network he controlled?